Chad, we are back. Week 6 college football bro show is here. The BroThrow official college football pick show. And it is a big week in the college football realm. We are firmly into conference play. We saw one of the games of the year, maybe one of the games of the decade last week in Bama versus Georgia. You were right on with the Tide in that one. Potential rematch looming for that game, maybe in the SEC championship game, maybe in the playoffs now, the 12-team playoff. I would love to see it again. We start off this week with a rematch from last year's national championship game, Michigan taking on Washington. And for a rematch for a national championship game, you would think that this game would have a little bit more hype, but it has virtually none. And that is because you got no more Michael Penix, no more JJ McCarthy, no more Jim Harbaugh, no more Kalen DeBoer, but still should be a good game on the defensive side of things. I think that we're going to see a very defensive-focused game. We know that Michigan now with Alex Orji does not want to pass the ball, period. And Washington has actually had a very, very solid run defense so far this year at home. Yes, they lost last week to Rutgers and they gave up over 132 yards to Kyle Monangai, but that was on the road, and Rutgers has a very, very solid scheme that Michigan wants to basically emulate right now in that exact same game plan. So I actually like Washington in this game -2.5. I know it's kind of a weird pick, but this is the snowman special that I talked about with the unranked home favorite against a ranked road dog. Yes, it lost last week with Baylor, but I'm still sticking with the system. It's been very profitable for me over the years. And I even like the play because Washington went against this exact same style of offense last week. And while they did fall a little bit short, now at home, I do like them to get it done. They've been much, much better at home so far this season. Will Rogers has been very, very solid at not turning the ball over. And I think that's going to be very key because if you want to give Michigan a short field, you're probably going to struggle. So having to have them go the length of the field is optimal. Will Rogers, 10 touchdowns, 0 interceptions so far this season. As long as Washington's not making mistakes and turning it over, I think they get this done. I'm riding with Washington in the national championship rematch.
Yeah, defense. That's this game, man. Washington has a top 10 defense, giving up just 250 yards a game. Michigan, meanwhile, is only moving the ball 310 yards per game, which is well below the league average of 395. So, like you mentioned, this is a snowman special. I'm going to ride snowman specials with you, follow the system. But looking at Michigan barely beating Minnesota, barely beating USC, only beating Arkansas State by 10, this is just not the powerhouse Michigan of the sign-stealing era. So I think that, more importantly, Washington's laying points at home. We'll say it one more time for the viewers. They're laying points at home against a ranked opponent, and I love it. Let's go.
And moving on to another Big Ten matchup, Rutgers headed to Nebraska. This honestly might be the best game overall this week. It's kind of a down week in terms of viewership, but I think this one is really going to be a fun game. What are you liking here?
I like Rutgers. It's one of those games is right on the number for me. But like you mentioned, the scheme that Rutgers had last week, they just look solid. They look like a really good football team. The Scarlet Knights are 4-0. Proved last week their solid program by defeating Washington. And I like Greg Schiano. He's an NFL caliber defensive mind who's a great stint at Ohio State as defensive coordinator, I think 16, 17, 18, all winning seasons, all 10, 11, 12 winning seasons. So I like the coaching staff there, but now they head to Lincoln to see Dylan Raiola, and I'd like to see what he has to offer against this Rutgers defense. But I hear Jake, I hear Memorial Stadium's a really tough environment to go play at. Some say it's the toughest to play in. It's hard to believe, but we'll see. Rutgers is not traditionally a huge football program. So I think that people are going to look at this line and they're going to say Nebraska's only favored 7 at home against Rutgers, and they're going to probably try and hammer that. So this is somewhat of a gut play. Watched that game last week. I thought Rutgers, like I said, looked really good. But one more thing, if you're looking to fade this game, or fade my pick, I don't hate that either. So it's in a strong play. This is, like I said, a gut feel, because what Matt Rule's done in Nebraska has been great. Also an NFL caliber head coach, and he's getting his first taste of success since he was at Baylor in 2019. And I think they're going to continue to roll with some wins, but I just think 7's too many.
Yeah, I like Nebraska to win, but Rutgers to cover as well. As you said, Monangai and the Rutgers scheme at running is very, very strong. This is one of the top backs in the country. He's had 20 plus carries each of the last 3 weeks, a true bell cow back. And Nebraska does have an incredible defense, the number 7 overall rush defense so far this year at allowing yards per game. But because Rutgers has such a strong defense in and of their own right, and you got a freshman quarterback in Dylan Raiola, he may see some new things this week in that Shiano scheme that he has not seen at all this season. Could lead to some extra mistakes. I do think Nebraska has too much firepower to get it done, especially at home with the home crowd behind them. But in a game like this, where it's going to be very defensive focused and potentially very running focused, I like getting the points in my pocket here at the +7. In a game, though, where I'm more than happy to give up points, Auburn taking on Georgia. Georgia giving up 24 points, and I'm perfectly okay with that. They had the game of the year last week against Bama, where they got off to a horrible start. Bama just whipped them up and down the field for the first few drives. What was it, 21-0, maybe even 28-0? I forget if Georgia cut it between there, but I just don't see that happening at all against Auburn. Auburn's offense has been very, very rough to say the least. They lost outright to Oklahoma last week at home when Oklahoma was missing their top 5 receivers for that game. And now coming off a loss, I mean, we've seen what Kirby Smart, we've seen what all these top coaches with these elite programs do coming off losses, and that's usually, put their foot on the throat of their opponent. Coming in at home with, and again, Georgia actually didn't end up playing that badly in that game. They came back and took the lead with 2 minutes to go. So clearly we know that their offense can put up points in a hurry, and their defense is very, very strong. I think this is going to be a hyper-focused Georgia team. I'm not saying they have to win out to make the playoffs. They could even lose one more game and they'll still be in. Losing to Alabama is kind of like no harm, no foul, but it's really going to piss them off and give them some Baltimore material to go off of. So give me Georgia in this one. I think this is going to be a massive, massive massacre.
Yeah, everything you said, plus, Georgia's at home. They're pissed off after a terrible loss last week. They fought hard. They came back, and then they gave up that late pass with a couple minutes left in the game. That was just one of the best plays I've seen this year. I mean, it was incredible. But, Carson Beck looked like he found the slot last week. Obviously early he didn't, but then he came back and looked phenomenal. I mean, he did. Yes, he gave up 3 picks, but outside of that, I think that most of those were early. And then once they got it going, they actually looked like a national championship caliber team. Then you look at Auburn, which really hasn't shown any fight this year. They lost to the Razorbacks. You look at the box score of that game, and the breakdown shows that Auburn should have won that game. In a big way, and they still lost by 10 points. They lost to OU, had no starting wide receivers, like you mentioned, which honestly is a really big deal. You got 5 guys out. Who do you have behind them? OU's a big program, but that's a big hit. So the over here is 54, and I don't see Auburn scoring 10, 17 points. I don't see it. I can't find it. So I like the pick. I like Georgia to roll here. They're going to be mad. They're going to be at home, and they're playing this down Auburn team.
Staying in the SEC, Tennessee headed to Fayetteville, taking on the Hogs. 13.5-point favorites. Tennessee, one of the best offenses so far this year. But your Hogs have not been too bad themselves. What do you think in this big spread here?
Well, Tennessee's 4-0 against the spread, and the Razorbacks are 4-1 against the spread, all as dogs pretty much. Well, in the big games at least. I know I'm going to take some flack for this. I'm going to get beat up from the Arkansas fans, but I just don't see how the Hogs can keep this game close, to be honest with you. Yes, we're at home. Yes, we have solidly covered as dogs. But to be honest, right now, I don't think we're a good program. We're not quite there. Poor penalty discipline, poor ball security, and poor playing, really. In the last couple losses we've had, there have been 4 or 5 plays that, there's bonehead plays, and what I call bad program plays. So you juxtapose that with Tennessee, and now we're facing the number 1 rush defense that will likely stifle the best part of our offense, which is Jaquindon Jackson. And I think, unfortunately, it's just going to be a long night for the Hogs with Nico slinging it around. Tennessee went into Norman and beat number 15 OU by 10, and now we're only 13.5 favorites, or 14 at this point, I think maybe. But that's kind of hard for me to believe. Yeah, the Hogs have a really good fan base. Yeah, we do have an exciting stadium and environment, but I think Tennessee's going to come in and roll.
Arkansas, you're not giving them enough credit. They've done very, very well this season. They've lost 2 games, yes, but neither by more than a touchdown. They're keeping everything close, and that is because, I believe, of Taylon Green. He is a very, very strong quarterback with a great running attack. But as you said, Tennessee has the number 1 rush defense in the SEC. I believe number 2 overall in the country, ahead of behind Army. So functionally number 1 in the country. And if they're stifling the Arkansas running game, I find it very difficult to believe that they're going to be able to cover as well with how good Tennessee's offense has been. So I'm leaning with you in Tennessee here as well.
Yeah, and one more thing, Tennessee's coming off a bye week. So, I mean, just stack the odds.
Well, moving on to from your favorite team, Arkansas, to my favorite team, Indiana, but I'm not fading my boys this week. I'm going to stick with Indiana. They have been the ultimate cash cow in college football this year. 5-0 against the spread. Every single game they've won by at least 14 plus points. In fact, Indiana has been trailing for a grand total of 0 seconds this season. That's right. They have never once been trailing in a game, and I don't see it happening here against Northwestern. Indiana's offense has just been awesome, led by Curtis Rourke. He has made very, very few mistakes. Indiana's number one receiver last year, Donovan McCulley, just left the program because he's gotten beaten out and fallen all the way to the wide receiver number 5. So Coach Curt Cignetti has done just an incredible job in his first season. Basically, he is the new gold standard for what someone can do when you come into a new program, and they can bring him success right away. He did a great job in the transfer portal. He's done a great job getting the fans to come out, and he's done a great job building the team up. So Northwestern has been really, really struggling this year. This is not a good team at all. They don't really have a lot of talent overall. And with how good Indiana's offense has been, I think that they're going to continue to roll here. Cignetti doesn't take his foot off the gas. I know the over-under here is only 41.5, but I think Indiana scoring 30 points a game is pretty realistic. They had a top 5 offense in college football, according to the advanced stats, and Northwestern's defense doesn't really issue much of a challenge to me. So I'm going to continue riding with the Hoosiers. They paid me every single week, and they're going to continue to do so. Now in the rankings, everyone knows the Hoosiers are legit, but we're still riding with them.
Yeah, I'm on the fence with this one. I mean, it's a lot of points, and I started to look at some of the previous matchups. Like you said, Curt Cignetti's done a great job with this Hoosiers program. It looks like a complete team, right? They've got the 8th best defense in total yards given up per game this season so far, playing well on both sides. Curtis Rourke, who I'll be honest, I had no idea who that was before this season. He's a senior,
former MAC Player of the Year.
Yeah, I know. Maybe I don't pay attention to the Big Ten, but I mean, 6'5", 220, and he's thrown for 1,400 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions this year, and that's through 5 weeks. So he's been outstanding. And then you look at Tyson Lawson, Justice Ellison. I texted you last week during the game. I said, man, I love how Justice runs. He just runs so hard and mean. But this is a really solid football program, and I'll probably side with you here. But just a couple of devil's advocate points. Looking at Northwestern, they've got David Braun, who comes from that North Dakota State pedigree, and took his team as an interim coach to 8-5 last year. That's pretty solid coming in your first year interim coach and coaching the team up. But it was last week Northwestern they couldn't get anything going against Washington. But we mentioned earlier that Washington's got one of the top defenses, top 10 in total yards given up this season. So that's not a huge strike to them. But Indiana at least appears through 5 games being even stronger on both sides of the ball than this Washington team, than the Washington team that Northwestern played. And these teams are only about 4 hours apart, so it's really not a huge home field advantage for Northwestern. So I'll probably ride with you here. Ride with them till they buck me, right?
I may even have to go to the game. I'm close to Northwestern. Got to be cheering for my Hoosiers. But if you do want to ride with us on Indiana or any of the other picks in this video, go to brothrow.com/YouTube today to sign up to place all your bets. And by the way, every single bet on BroThrow is plus 100 odds. That's better odds than you can find anywhere else. So brothrow.com/YouTube, sign up today. Chad, let's move on to the last game that we're going to talk about for this video. Moving back into the SEC, Mizzou taking on Texas A&M. 2.5 point spread here. This should be a very competitive game. What are you liking in this matchup?
Well, this one's almost a snowman special. A&M squeaked in. They're ranked now because they beat Arkansas last week. Mizzou, I think number 9 maybe. I can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, +2 dogs at A&M. Mizzou narrowly escaped Vanderbilt last week, and I think people are going to be a little bit down on Mizzou after that, but I really don't think we need to be sleeping on Vandy, who's already matched their season win total after through 5 weeks. So, Mizzou still has one of the best quarterback wide receiver duos in the NCAA with Brady Cook and Luther Burden III. And they still have a solid rushing offense with Nate Noel complemented by Marcus Carroll. So I love the offense here. I think that they've kind of had somewhat of a slow start. And if you look back at the last couple seasons with Mizzou, it seems like they get stronger as the season goes by. So I want to see them put the pedal to the metal this week and embarrass A&M. Can't stand A&M. No offense to any A&M fans, but and I don't like Mizzou either. But if I'm betting my money, it's Mizzou this week. But I think the difference in this game, and stop me if you've heard this before, is defense. Mizzou is number 3 in total yards surrendered, which is very strong looking at their schedule up to this point. Hasn't been super strong, but they've played solid, and that's all I need to know. Last week A&M was only able to muster 297 yards against a very porous Arkansas defense that made a lot of mistakes. So the difference in that A&M win over Arkansas was 3 turnovers, and turnovers are something that Mizzou has been reluctant to do this year, only giving up the ball twice. So I'd like to see Mizzou roll this week.
Yeah, I think Texas A&M has looked a lot better since they benched Wegman for Marcel Reed, but that's a scope of relativity, right? They also barely beat Bowling Green, only by 6 at home. And as you said, they didn't look amazing against Arkansas. You probably would expect them to win by more than 4. Certainly, they didn't cover that game. So I do think that Texas A&M probably a little bit overrated. I also like Mizzou here. Even though it's on the road, we know that College Station, a very, very tough place to play. I still think they can get it done. Brady Cook is a senior. He's been in a lot of tough environments before, so I don't think he's going to get as rattled as maybe a younger guy would.
Yeah.
That is going to do it, though, for this edition of the Bro Show. Again, if you want to sign up for BroThrow and place any bets that we talked about in this video, or fade any bets we talked about in this video, head to brothrow.com/YouTube now to sign up. Chad, any last thoughts before we let the viewers go in this one?
I need some wins, dude.
Me too, 100%.
Now's the time. Now's the time. Let's get rolling.
Yeah, this week we're getting wins. We like the picks in this video. We like the picks in our NFL video. So check that one out. If you haven't seen that one, it should be posted already as well. But we will catch you guys all in the next one next week. Peace.